is up, Exes and Tea podcast fans? We're back at it again with another episode. Like always, I always want to say thank you for coming back. Thank you for your interest, because I love the fact that we here as a community can support each other. And it really has become an incredible community. And I just have to say shout out to anybody who was in the Amway Facebook group that was pioneered by Zay and Melody. And if you're still in there advocating against Amway, against Worldwide, against any of these lines of affiliation, these tools businesses, I am so proud of you, and I'm so excited that you guys are here and supporting everyone. So with that being said, I guess you can tell what our episode is going to be about today, because we're back at it again talking about Amway and these tools organizations. Like always, your girl's not trying to get sued. So disclaimer, Amway's just a distribution company. We're not here to beef on them. That's their place. My beef, my guest's beef, most people who are against Amway, their beef is mostly with these LOAs, these Amway motivational organizations, these really toxic cult-like environments, all right? This is purely based on personal experiences. We're not out here slandering people. We're not out here trying to hurt people, okay? We have a truth and we're allowed to speak it. So with that being said, again, don't sue me. Don't sue my guest. So with that being said, I have somebody who I'm so excited to bring on, because we have yet another line of affiliation that we've really kind of touched on, but this person was in Britt Worldwide. Britt Worldwide is what really started it all. What started Worldwide Dream Builders, LTD, URA, all of the other Amway lines of affiliation all really stemmed from Britt Worldwide. So my guest, her name is Meredith, and you guys, let's let her have it. Welcome, Meredith.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to say too, these are all of our opinions and our stories of what actually, happened to us. And it's kind of interesting because I'm a storyteller, and I literally am a storyteller. I get paid to tell stories. I am a messaging expert and brand storyteller. That's been my, I'll talk as we get into it. I'll talk about my post MLM journey in my career now, but a big part of it that drew me to that, and why I love telling stories and hearing stories and hearing other people's stories so much, is because for so long, the culture in BWW was that you cannot tell your story until you reach a certain level, until you go platinum. No one gets to hear your story. You are not worthy of our time. You are not worthy of our respect. You are not worthy of, whatever. Yeah. But when you were saying that, it just kind of made me think about that. And I think about this a lot too, is I wonder, why am I so obsessed with
right. Why are we so obsessed? But we are, because they're such good stories that are so relatable. And you're so right. One thing that I think collectively as a group that some of my guests and I have kind of come to the conclusion of is we're not brainwashed enough either before we're platinum. It's not just that we're not worthy, which you're so right. It's also that we're not going to speak our truth in a way that they want us to speak our truth. At least that's how it was in Worldwide too. You had to be certain pin levels to say things. If we were going out and talking to anybody, we couldn't ask certain people questions. We could only ask Eagles and above questions. If people asked us questions, we were directed back to, hey, go ask your upline that question. I'm not the right person.
Oh, okay. So that made me remember that every time that we were going to a conference or, any kind of major event where we were going to be around other people besides just those in our group, we would be pulling into town on a bus, and someone would get over the loudspeaker on the bus and go through this whole thing about how, what is okay to talk about and what is not okay to talk about. And just basically saying that if you're coming to this conference, then people are probably going to ask you, how long have you been doing this? How much money do you make? And, stuff like that. So if they said, how long have you been doing this? The only acceptable answer was to say, I'm just getting started. And then because just thinking their whole thing, they were we're always just getting started is kind of what they wanted you to, that was the line that they wanted you to toe. And then if you were asked how much money are you making, the only acceptable response was, you wouldn't believe me if I told you.
No way. Oh my gosh. That's funny because we were not taught that. We definitely had like micro stories that they would help us come up with. They're like, give a really brief description. For me, they'd make sure, like, bold, capitalized, italicized, that I am a single mom. Make sure that they know that you're a single mom doing this. So that way it's motivational to them for some reason. And it's like, dude, that's not like, that's preying upon people, which obviously in retrospect, I see that now. And
well, wait, was that for like other IBOs that you met like at conventions, or okay, so they
both.
wanted you. So this is something that I've been thinking about lately too, is that it's like this cycle of continuously recruiting someone, even when they are already in business. And which is just like really weird I don't know. It's interesting because it's something I think about as a business owner, and like I think about my clients, and I think about, there's a lot that out there about like, you know, the client experience that talks about how you should always be selling to your clients and treat your client like, even once they've signed up, once they've started working with you, once they've paid you, whatever, like you are still selling to them, because which it makes sense from a standpoint of like, they're not your friends necessarily. You are not like best buddies with them. They are a client. They are paying you. There has been exchange of money involved. And that really, you know, affects the relationship. And like you can get personal, it can get chummy, it can get, you know, whatever. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like money, usually in my case, a pretty like large amount of money has exchanged hands, and I need to honor that. And, you know, like if they, you know, call me or message me or whatever, like that needs to be like my first response. Like I can't ignore that the way that I would like a, you know, a friend or something like that. Not that I would ignore a client, but you know, it's just, it's a very different type of relationship, even though, you know, even when you are working with someone really closely and you are kind of starting a friendship, you know?
Yeah. And you're right. It is constantly always selling, especially in those organizations, because you have to be excited. You have to convince yourself that you're still excited. Yeah. And two, you have to show the other person that this is exciting. You want to be here. We're all positive. We're all robots. We're all here with the same hive mind. We're all connected some way or another. And I think that's why it's so important to share our stories with Worldwide, because I don't think either of us had any idea what kind of environment we were walking into. And real fast, how did you find the Exes and Tea podcast?
You posted something in one of the anti-MLM groups. Either it might have been Roberta Blevins' group, or it could have been so that's like the more serious group. I'm part like, I feel like the Roberta Blevins group is like a little bit more, I think it's Life After MLM is the name of the Facebook group. And then, so that one is like more, I think, about recovery, more about talking like education about these organizations and stuff. And then there's like the fun one, like the mean girls of the
I think it was the fun one. Like I'm 90% sure it was the fun one.
Your MLM is not a small business, Karen.
Yep, that's my favorite one. If you guys, if you haven't joined these Facebook pages, please go join them, because you're building upon your community, and it's not just Amway people. Like we have the ex-Amway Facebook group, but there's also anti-MLMers out there who have been what they feel like as duped by these other MLMs. Like it's a whole big culture, you guys. It's not just Amway, but we just happen to specialize in Amway.
Honestly, being part of those groups will show, like if you were in Amway, being part of those groups will show you how different and how crazy like other experience, like not that like your experience, all of our experiences in Amways were super fucking crazy, but other people's experiences were like just insane.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm happy to have connected with you. And I'm pretty sure it was the fun one. That's one of my favorite ones because it's just funny, goofy stuff. And I started posting on there like my breakdown of how much money I spent while I was in
that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one because it's true. So
I know,
going back
I know.
to the beginning. So I know that you have this fantastic career now, which really, like you said, was kind of like leaving Britt Worldwide was the catalyst for that. But where were you at before you found Britt Worldwide, or I guess before they found you?
Yeah, so it was a long time ago because I've already been out for about 3 years now, and I was in for 7 years.
Wow.
So yeah, so we're talking about like a good long decade ago. So was fairly new. I live in New York City and I was fairly new to New York at that time. And the reason that I moved here was to start a travel and tourism company, and that we conducted. So I moved here, I got my tour guide license and started this company that we operated food and tasting tours in the ethnic enclaves of like the outer boroughs of the city. So like we would, like I would do like a lot of student groups and stuff. And so we would like meet up like somewhere in the city and then like all get on the train for 45 minutes and go to like the outer parts of Brooklyn or Queens, like even in Staten Island. I did tours in the Bronx as well, like all over, just to give people like a cultural experience and get out like really off the beaten path. And it was a lot of fun. And that was what I moved to New York to be able to do. And so I was just everywhere. Like I was, like I would talk about having like 3 or 4 borough days where I would be like I've always lived in Queens. And so I'd be like, okay, well, it's no big deal to like come to Manhattan, but it's 2 boroughs. But if I hit up like Brooklyn or like, and then like had to go to the Bronx for something or whatever, like I would be like, man, I had a 4 borough day. Like I deserve a beer.
Yeah. So how did you meet your upline? Was it while you were kind of out and about?
Yeah. Yeah, I was on the train. It was so my uplines lived one neighborhood over from me, and I was coming home. I was on my way home from Brooklyn, from like really, really deep, like in Brooklyn. Like I probably had it was probably like an hour and a half train ride for me from where I was, because I was planning a tour with a student group there, and I had to go and check out all the restaurants and stuff and like make sure that we were all good to go and whatever. So I was on my way back from that, and I was like trying to learn the history of the neighborhood and stuff. So I had like my notebook. I had like these little like note cards and stuff that I was going over so I could like study on the train. And then, this guy, and at the time, this is kind of funny, but it's been interesting this kind of speaks to how much like my neighborhood in Queens has changed over the past 10 years, because when I first moved here, it was very, very uncommon so like Queens is like, New York is obviously like a city of immigrants. Queens especially, I don't know if it still is. It probably still is, but for the longest time, like Queens is kind of like claim to fame was that it is the most diverse borough of like all of them, and that you can find someone who's like every language in the world. You can find someone in Queens who speaks that language. So where I live in kind of like the outer parts of Queens, it used to be there, like went past a certain stop, there were no more white people on the train. And I remember noticing him because it was coming home, and it was probably like late evening, probably like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And I was like, it is very uncommon for another white person to be on the train. He is probably like Russian or something. Like he probably does not speak English. Then he asked me if I knew what stop was next or something. I don't know. And that was kind of like how the conversation got started. And I was honestly like really curious about him, because I was like, I don't see people who look like me and talk like me on the train past a certain point. So like, what are you doing here? And so
right, it's suspicious. suspicious. What are you doing?
Right. Like, what is your deal? And yeah, so we just like hit it off. And so I remember this conversation like clear as day. And he said, he asked me what I did. And I was like, well, I have this business. Like, I moved here, maybe I had only been living there for like a year or something at that point, and I had been trying to get that business off the ground. And I was so excited because the reason that I had been in Brooklyn and like looking at that neighborhood and stuff and like preparing for the student tour was because I had just gotten involved with doing student tours for NYU, which was a big client for me. And it was like I was nervous, like I wanted to get everything, like I wanted to do everything right. And I wanted to be able to obviously like have repeat business with them and stuff, whatever. So I was like, yeah, I'm planning this tour in Brooklyn, this like, Russian and Ukrainian neighborhood in like near Coney Island. And we're going to eat this like really yummy food that you really can't get anywhere else. And I just came back from that. And so I have to go back in the morning and, blah, 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 whatever. Like I gave him the whole story. Because I was like literally legitimately excited about what I was doing and had every reason to be, And so I was like, yeah, here's my card. And so I gave him my card and I was like, oh yeah, like, so what do you do? And he was like, oh yeah, well, I run a business. I have a business with a couple of friends. And I said, you know what? Isn't it great to be kind of like in charge of your own life? And he was like, yes. So all of this to him was just like, like his little Amway boner was just, yeah.
Exactly. You know exactly what his purpose was the moment you saw him. Now you're like, I know why you're here.
Yeah. And like how much of like a prime candidate I was to him, because we targeted traditional business owners all the time,
Yeah.
And so when he called me like the next day, so when he called me the next day, it was, like, hey, we are always looking. And I remember this was interesting too, is that he said, we are always looking for new partners. And that was not language that was like okay to use with really anyone else but he knew that I was already a business owner and that I might be receptive to that. So I was kind of like, okay, like, I don't really know, like, I don't really understand what you do. I was like, what do you, like, okay, like, what do you do? And he said something about like distribution. And I'm like, I don't fucking know what distribution. I remember sitting in my living room, like, with like my three roommates at the time. Like, I was like on the computer, like Googling, like, what the fuck is distribution? Like, I don't know what this is. Yeah.
It's so ambiguous.
Right. So ambiguous. And so I was like, okay. So I knew that I was going to meet with this guy. And I remember so much I even remember what I was wearing when I was going to meet with him. And we met at this place called the Pennsylvania Hotel, which is like, it's in Manhattan and it's like right in like Midtown. It's right across the street from Penn Station. It's actually being turned into a mall as we speak. It's no longer a hotel. I think it's all like under renovation and stuff now. I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even know if the hotel part exists anymore. But that was where they had in the very beginning, and in those days, that was where we had a lot of where BWW had a lot of their meetings out of that hotel. There was a lot of conference space.
And it was like sketchy at the time.
It was so sketchy. It was a hotel that I mean, there was nothing wrong with the hotel. It was actually like really, was like a really historic hotel. But it had kind of it was kind of run down, and it was basically like the place where if you were coming to New York with your like band trip or your like orchestra trip in high school, that was where you would stay.
Yeah.
Because
on a budget.
Right. Because it was on a budget, and it was super cheap, and it was right in the middle, of everything. So you could get to like wherever you needed to go easily from there. So yeah, I went to the lobby of the Pennsylvania Hotel, and it was also like, I would say like a good place for you to meet with strangers, which was, if this random dude from the train tells me that he wants to meet in the lobby of the Pennsylvania Hotel, like, I know where that is. I know that there's like millions of people in and out of there all day. I mean, that's like saying like, let's meet in Grand Central Station. Like, there's so many people. Like, I'm not going to feel sketched out or, you know, whatever. So yeah. And so there was a little coffee shop there. They bought me a cup of coffee, a like super cheap cup of coffee, and they just showed me the plan. Like, it took probably about an hour, maybe a little bit longer. And they like he drew everything out, talked about like the selling products and which I wasn't really excited about, like selling products. I was like, I don't really care. But like the ability to create new businesses was exciting to me. I remember, obviously that's like not what we were really doing, but one thing that I was getting from like my tourism company at the time is that I found that I didn't really love working with like clients and stuff. And like, I enjoyed like being out and about. I enjoyed like all of like the research parts of the tours and stuff. And like that it got like, I learned so much from it. It was like so enriching to me to like get out of the house, like go all over the city, like, check out all these new places and stuff. But I just didn't really love like the people that came on the tours. Like, a lot of them were like kind of annoying, or they would come up and they'd be like, well, I'm a vegan and I don't eat this and this and this and this. And I'm like, you signed up for a food tour in like Chinatown. Like, what do you think we're going to eat?
So he really found you kind of at prime time where you're already considering the fact that you're like, I love this, but I only love aspects of it. And when he showed you the plan, and you said that you could create new businesses, which I would imagine is you recruiting your downline is probably what that is, right?
Right.
Okay. So was that the part that appealed to you the most of it? Or like, which part was it you're like, I want to do that?
That, well, I didn't walk away knowing like, oh, I want to do that. It's kind of funny. I don't know if I ever felt like, oh, I want to do that. I was just kind of like, one thing that I do remember sticking out to me, like once I finally understood what it was exactly that we did with the products and stuff, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Okay, so now I'm not buying my stuff from like Target or wherever, which is sad, but because I love Target, but like I can buy my products from this place and I'm going to get paid a little bit for it too. And then if I have other people do the same thing, they'll get paid a little bit for it too, which is great. It seemed very like no-brainer to me. And even now when I say that, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, and I kind of feel like, I kind of wonder sometimes, I'm like, what if we all just decided to, what if we just had like a massive Facebook group and all just decided like, we are going to all join Amway and we're just going to buy like our $100 or whatever worth of stuff. Well, $100 wouldn't get you very far. It would probably have to be like $300 worth of stuff, but whatever. Like, I definitely buy $300 worth of stuff, every month now. So like, what if everybody just did that and we all just decided like, this is what we're going to do? Then they would actually have to pay us. And if we just did that without the, bullshit of the like tools and whatever.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
I thought that too, because I was like, okay, I love the way though that they say you're reallocating funds. I was a single mom at the time. I was not spending what they wanted me to spend on personal products.
Right.
So when they said, and the way they explained it, the way you just explained it, it's exactly the bare bones of how they explain it to you. And that sounds fantastic. I mean, you're right. It's like you're telling somebody who's already like tired and doesn't really love what they do, or they're considering this new option. And you literally just tell them, you're just buying stuff from here. And you're getting a little kickback, and you get more of a kickback when you get other people to also buy their stuff there.
Yeah.
Sounds great. That's not – that's it. But that's the Amway side of things. That is not –
exactly.
That's not the tools business side of things. And I think that's why I always say like, hey, my beef is not with Amway, because Amway's just the distribution company. They're the ones who have their specific program that they have and how they pay people and things like that. Yeah. But when it comes to these tools businesses – they really explain it in a way that's going to get you hooked, but it's like a bait and switch. They really start you off. That's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And then you don't. And so when you were first getting into Britt Worldwide, I guess when you first got launched into business, were you having like meeting quotas? Were you having to like download certain apps? What did that look like?
So this was like in 2012, I want to say. It was probably like when I first got started. And we were expected to go to one meeting per week, and which was at the Pennsylvania Hotel. And so like I went to that meeting. Like I went to a lot of those meetings, like even though I'd already gotten started. I mean, honestly, like to get started then it was $160. And that was like not very much money to me. Like I was like, I mean, it's not to like sneeze at that amount of money or whatever. Like it wasn't nothing, but it wasn't like, all right, if I lose $160, like, you know, do you know how much money I've lost? Like, or just not lost necessarily, but just like with my tour company and just do through like trial and error and stuff. Like it didn't feel like, you know, it was like, oh, all right, whatever. And they were very clear about like, you can get that money back. Like if you decide that, you know, this isn't right for you or whatever. And that was just to Amway. They hadn't started anything with like, this is what you have to pay BWW or whatever. But I do remember like one thing was that when I think it was my second group meeting that I went to at that hotel, and these were like literally hundreds and hundreds of people were coming to these meetings multiple times a week. It was insanity back then. Like yeah.
And they costed money, didn't they?
So it was $7 per meeting.
And that's every week.
If it was your first time, you obviously, you know, you didn't pay if you were like someone's guest or whatever. And like no one paid for the guests. Like it was just like, okay, it's you're a guest, it's your first time. And so I remember it was my second time and I hadn't gotten started in business yet. But I was going to the meeting, and this is what I thought that was kind of weird, is that they really wanted me to come to this meeting again. And I was like, I already went to that. Like, I don't understand, like, why you want me to go again. And they were like, oh, we go every week. And I was like, okay, sure, I get, like, what else am I doing? Like, sure, I guess I can come. All right, whatever. And so there was like this whole like checking in process. And I was just staying there. Like I wasn't even paying attention. I was just like, you know, whatever, like staying in this line. And then I got up and they were like, is this your first time? And I said, oh no, I came last week. And then this guy was like, okay, it'll be $7. I was like, what for? And he was like, it's just like the cost of the room and everything. And I was like, okay. Like he was like, are you a business owner? I was like, no, like I did not know that this was going to be like a thing. And it was like very clear that I was like not getting through the door unless I paid this guy $7. And so like I had a lot of cash back then because of my tours. Like people would give me tips and stuff. So I was like, okay. So I gave my $7, but I like went immediately when I found my upline inside. I was like, what is this money for? Like, what am I paying for? This was not like, you know, this, nobody told me this. Like, this was not something that I was prepared to do. And, you know, like I've always been pretty like diligent about budgeting and stuff. So whatever. So that was like really weird, a red flag, but he was like, he got me the money back. I mean, he made this whole thing of like, let me go talk to them and like see if I can get your money back. And so the whole thing just seemed really weird to me. I was like, okay,
that is weird.
And I guarantee you they would not have given him money back from that. He definitely gave me that money just like from his own pocket.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like, good for him for doing that, because that lack of transparency right there, that is, I guess in retrospect, like a huge red flag. And the fact that you guys had to pay for every weekly meeting boggles my mind, because we had like, what it sounds like those are for you guys was what we had like quarterly, or like maybe like twice a month. We'd have rallies where the diamonds would come in and we would have to pay back then $10 for the board plan, which was only for business owners, and then another $10 at the end with the board plan where you could bring a guest. Guests, of course, at that time, yes, were free.
Sure.
But I learned recently that it has gone up. It is now $20 for the first half, $20 for the second half.
Whoa.
And that's twice as much. And that was only 4 years ago that this happened, that I was paying that amount. And I'm just wondering, like you, where the hell is that money going to? Covers maybe a conference room and a half twice over again. With how many people you're bringing? The funny thing was
that I never thought about that until, so this was like years later when I got out. Someone like explained to me like what exactly they do with that money. And our location had changed so many times over, like in the 7 years. And it was just so much. I mean, there's so much going on. And this is why these groups are designed like that, to keep you so busy and exhausted that you're not thinking about these things. You're not thinking critically. We paid no matter where we were meeting, even in some like shitty like VFW hall that was like crumbling and did not even have a functioning bathroom, it was still like the $7, and you're just like, okay, whatever. It was never enough money for you to be like, oh, I can't I can't swing this or something. But
yeah,
it was just kind of like, all right, fine, whatever. Like it's, the cost of a Starbucks wasn't even, Starbucks might be $7 now, but
yeah,
it wasn't.
You're
back
right.
then.
It is such a small amount that you don't question it.
Right.
And at that time, and I don't know if it was the same with Britt Worldwide, but I know that I wouldn't have dared questioned it. Like the way that they kind of like do everything, you're just like, oh, I can't question this. Like this is just how things roll. Like you said, you're not thinking critically. And so when you go and have... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was going to say, and like being in New York, they always had the saying like, well, it's New York. Like this is, like it's really expensive to rent rooms and stuff like that. And it's like, and I'm kind of like, yeah, no shit. Like, of course it's expensive.
Right.
And then I did ask one time, like, so what if you have money left over? And they said that would go to the speaker as just kind of like a tip if there's anything left over. And I was like, all right, that makes sense. Like, I guess if I were speaking, or if they said first, like, to cover the travel of the people that, like, come and speak, because sometimes people would come from, like, Long Island or like Pennsylvania or Connecticut or wherever. And so they talked about like, covering the travel for them. And then if there's anything left over, they divide it amongst the speakers as like a tip. Okay. Here's what was actually happening with that money. And this was like years later when we had a much smaller group and we were meeting kind of like at our own like designated location. And it was it's like this Catholic group. It was the Knights of Columbus Hall. And it was clean. It was fine, whatever. There was nothing wrong with it. It was just like kind of out of the way. And it was cheap, and you could tell that it was cheap. And but like we had a weekly standing, like Monday nights are our thing. We're gonna come in there, so that because it's like repeat business, that they got a deal they were not paying the full price of if you were gonna rent it for like a birthday party on a Saturday afternoon or something, like we were paying significantly less. It's a fucking Monday. And, we're coming every week. But even if like I called one time and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about, I'm looking at locations for my parents' anniversary party. And, what is this room? $50 an hour. And I was like, oh, interesting. And that's how much it would have been for like an actual party where I am bringing like food and drink, and you're gonna have to clean up, you're gonna have to do all this stuff. And I don't know, I mean, they didn't say if there would have been like an extra like cleaning fee or whatever, but obviously like we weren't bringing in food and drink, we weren't, they weren't have to clean. We did the chairs, we did the setup and like breakdown and stuff we did on our own. So there was no way that was even $50, that was anywhere near $50 an hour for that meeting. And even if it was only $50, like, are you kidding me? And then you had 30 to 40 people coming every week bringing you $7. That was how our diamond uplines bought groceries. I guarantee you that was because of the way that, Amway and BWW were set up. Nobody was making money from their Amway businesses. Nobody. Maybe they made like $20,000 a year, if that, from their Amway businesses. It was all from BWW. And one of the ways to make money in BWW, if you didn't have, I think you asked before about the apps and stuff. And so there was this one app for listening to the talks. And then there was an app, which I can't remember what the name of that one was, but it was basically like a podcast subscription. And you got like 1 credit a week to download a talk. No, I'm sorry. You got 1 talk sent to you every week. And then you had 1 or 2, maybe a month where there were like bonus and you could just like download whatever you wanted. So basically like 5 or 6 talks a month. And then there were, it actually started out, I'm sorry, I have to correct myself. When I first started, that was on CDs. They were literally CDs. This was in like 2012.
Oh, yeah.
You got a CD, like a physical CD. And I am so mad at myself because like when I was getting out and I was like mad about all this, I threw away all of those CDs and I wish that I still had them so bad. Ugh, like it kills me that I threw those away.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say this for legal purposes, allegedly, to how they were getting paid. And the only reason I say that is just because I don't want to get sued. But
no, you're right. I mean, we don't know.
Highly suspected.
Yeah.
It really is, especially after COVID. Like, I wish there was more transparency towards that, because if there was more transparency where they're like, hey, when you reach a certain pin level, guess what? You're going to get royalties on these audios that are going to come out. You're going to be paid as a speaker X amount.
I mean, that was talked
how
about,
much more appealing?
Yeah. I mean, that was talked about a little bit. Like one thing my upline would say a lot was like, there are 3 ways to get paid in Amway. One is off of the product that you buy, and then another one is off of the product that you sell, like the retail margin. Like if you buy a case of Excess for $25 and you sell it for $30, like obviously you made $5. And then the third way was like off of what your downline bought and sold. Those were the so it was like, there are 3 ways to make money in Amway. Well, there's actually 27 ways, but we don't want to confuse you. So that was with BWW had apparently 27 different ways that you could make money off of, like literally off of your downline, off of them directly giving you money, not just like, I bought a product and then you get a kickback.
Yeah. And a lot of that too, they say it so ambiguously too, so that way there's no concrete proof, unfortunately, that they get paid this way. But I'm telling you, I buy it. I believe that theory, the alleged, thought behind it, but it just makes so much sense. Like there's no way. Cause like you said, there's just spending so much money. And now that like we're so fired up about the money that we're spending. So I have to go back a little bit. Yeah. When you were going to these meetings and you were enjoying your time, I feel like everybody has a honeymoon phase, and I'm curious as to what yours looked like and what was it that you liked about the business, and were you selling the products? Were they pushing retail or personal use? What kinds of things did you like, and what were you doing at that time?
So I always stayed very, very true to what they told me in the beginning. Like, this is your, like they said, like in the very beginning, like the very first plan, it was like 100 PV per month commitment. Like that's the minimum that you have to make to get paid. So I'd be like, great. Like, and they would say like, you don't stockpile products and stuff like that. I would be like, great. I don't stockpile products. Like I just buy what I need every month. And I was like, so I guess like cheap with, or smart really about what I bought, is that I would So like my mom was always really supportive of me, and if I was, she kind of looked at it, she was like, all right, I'm going to buy dish soap anyway, so I might as well buy dish soap from my daughter and laundry detergent and stuff like that. So like I had like my whole family, like at the beginning of the month I would say like, hey, this, like, what do you want? Like, what do you need? Do you need laundry detergent? Do you need whatever? And like my family would buy that, and then whatever I didn't sell, I would, buy like my own laundry detergent, or like I would get something for like skincare or whatever. That was when I got into skincare. I am like, still obsessed with skincare. And that was kind of like what started that like catalyst.
Same.
So I would, buy something for myself or whatever. But I never stockpiled products. I never like bought more than I needed. Like if I ever did buy more than I needed, it was just like, I want to be able to have like an excess, like every morning when I wake up or something.
Yeah.
Like it was like, I considered those things like luxuries. Like I would be like, okay, well now like I got a new job. So like now I can afford to take the XX vitamins or something like that. Like I was very like true to what they told me when I first got started, even though they tried to switch it up so many times. And I would be like, so, you said like this was about, like just buying what you need and, what your family needs or whatever. So like, what are you doing? Like now you're telling me that you placed like a 750 PV order, which would be like probably around $3,000 worth of products every month. What the fuck are you buying? Like you don't have any kids. You don't, and if you're telling me that both you and your partner, and you're single, and or you're not you're not single, like you and your partner, if like you and your partner are both placing 700 PV orders, what the hell are you using all that for?
Yes.
Yeah. But I never did that. I was like, nope, that's not what you told me. Not going to do it. Not going to do it.
You're so smart. You're so right though. Because so with us, just looking back, and I'm like, I remember how much Amway product I still had left over after I left. I mean, it took me forever to either, like some of it, I was just like, this is trash. I want to get rid of it. Like, no offense, Amway. No offense, but some of your products were not my favorite. Your makeup sucked in my opinion, personal opinion. Anybody who likes it, that's fine. I did not love it. Okay. I didn't love it. It all went in the trash when I quit. But I still had like laundry detergent left over. Like, and the thing is like, I was so like broke by that time where I was still trying to put together a Ditto order. So they would tell us, buy the most PV for the least amount of money. That was the vitamins. So the amount of vitamins I had in my house for me, for my children, and nobody, my parents were not supportive. My dad was like the biggest negative person, and he was not about it. And he didn't want to buy anything for me. My stepmom, same thing. She was like, I don't support this. I don't want you in this. And a lot of it was just like because of how I was, because of the cult-like environment, really. But I'm telling you, Amway products for like a year, because I had them out my ears. We had to do 200 PV a month if we were a single. That is $600 in Amway products, which if you know Amway products, they're pretty expensive, but that's a huge order. That was usually 2 cases of excess. We had to have enough excess for our guests. We had to have extra for our upline in case they needed it. Like we were supposed to have so much product that we could provide for everybody else and ourselves.
I never gave, like occasionally, like if I really liked the person, or if I knew them as like if they came to like one of my tours or something, or I don't know, if I really liked the person, I would give them an excess. But I was so stingy with my stuff.
But that's so smart.
I would make my upline give them stuff.
But that, I mean, honestly, it sounds like you really got it, because you were a business owner. You understood exactly what the instructions were. Like, you knew.
I understood the assignment.
Yeah, you did. You got it. You were ready. And so with this whole, which is so crazy. So
which was actually a good point that I wanted to, something you said made me want to, oh yeah, you were talking about how like I was a business owner and like understood the assignment. And that's a good point, because I felt like we had crazy uplines. Like our platinum uplines, Jim and Summer, out of, this was another thing that was weird, is that I was in New York City. my, direct, direct sponsor uplines, whatever, Daniel and Mark were also in New York City. We were building a very small, it was literally just us. And that was like part of what made the beginning of this journey so much fun, is because it was like we were just a group of like ragtag entrepreneurs renting like a murderer van for like as little money as possible. God knows that thing probably should not have run, should not have been on the road for 8 hours.
Right.
Driving to the conferences in Richmond, Virginia, just having a great old time, and sleeping like 6 people to a hotel room, and whatever. It was fun. It reminded me of, so I in high school I did speech and debate, and it was very similar. Like on a school bus, we would leave on like a Thursday afternoon. We didn't have to go to school on Friday if we had a tournament. So like we would drive to another school. We would stay in a shitty hotel, as many people as possible into one room.
Yeah.
And it was just so much fun. And like the conversations, you're tired, you're whatever, like you're having like, all of these like wild conversations about your hopes and dreams and stuff. It was the exact same thing, which is why I had so much fun in the beginning. So what I will leave off with is that after a while, the situation with Jim, and we had no supervision is what made it fun. There were so many rules in BWW. For example, like the no alcohol thing. I mean, we weren't drinking, or it wasn't like we were drinking at any of these like meetings or conferences or whatever. I mean, we were so tired. Like, why would you want to? And there were also a lot of young people that weren't even 21 yet. So like that wasn't even a question. But like that was one of the weird rules. Another one of the weird rules is that women had to wear skirts.
Yes.
You had to wear, not just a skirt, a fucking dress. You had to wear a dress.
Yep.
And I had been in business for like probably like 4 years before I ever heard that. And I was like, what? You had to do your hair a certain way. You had to, which was a big problem we had a lot of people on our team. I mean, I was like one of 4 white people on the team. And for me to do my hair, like for me to straighten my hair or whatever, it's like no big deal. Like I'll just blow dry it, or, make it like get a blowout, make it look nice. That's fine. But like for somebody else, to have to straighten their hair, be told your hair has to look a certain way, like that is not okay. New York City literally passed laws against that. You cannot tell people how to do their hair in a way that it does not, in a way other than how it grows naturally out of their head.
Yes.
So so there are all these weird rules that like I wasn't privy to because of the nature of our situation, which we had our upline in Arizona. We were out here, no supervision, just living life, trying to build the dream, whatever. As time went on, though, it became very obvious that this guy, Jim, was not well.
This goes deeper then, so we're at an hour. And this is so juicy, you guys. Yeah. We're gonna keep this going in part 2, which I didn't even plan for a part 2, but we love a part 2.
Yes,
because I feel like there's so much good information. Meredith, thank you so much for coming here, giving us the first half of the tea, because there's more. I mean, I know what it is, but there's so much more. So, where can everybody follow you at?
So, my name on Instagram is probably where I'm the most active on, Instagram and of course Facebook. Like I'm an aging millennial, so I am active on Facebook. I'm Meredith Adams on Facebook. On Instagram, I am Cactus Girl Media, which is the name of my company. Also cactusgirlmedia.com. You can find me there. That's me.
Yes, I will link all of that as well. And I'm really excited in part 2. Meredith has some great information about her website coming out too. So if you haven't listened to your favorite part yet, that will be your favorite part. You have to come back for that. So you can follow me on Instagram at @exesandtea_podcast, TikTok at @exesandtea_podcast. We started a YouTube channel. Go subscribe. I will post the link to that as well. And we will catch you guys on the next episode.